Welcome back, everyone. This is Frank DeMora with the End Times Research Ministry, and there's a lot of news today that I'm going to be covering. But before I even get there, let me just say this, that after you're done watching the video today, when you go to my website, you'll see below it'll say more news. And there's going to be other links with other news that I did not cover today in this video. So let's go right into the news, since there is a lot of news here today. I want to first of all cover last couple of days I've put up more information since I've left the red flag up, warning about these earthquakes that were going to be coming shortly. And this pertains to the prophecy that we find in Matthew chapter 24 verse 7. Now there are many signs within the context of this writing about the future, signs that we're supposed to be looking for, and one of those is obviously the earthquakes. And so that is in Matthew 24. Now in Luke 21, Jesus talks about these great earthquakes that are going to be coming that we're supposed to watch. So we have many quakes and great quakes. And just like in the past 7-8 days, almost every single day there's been a huge earthquake. Today is no different. Now let me go over to the first news so that you could see it for yourself. There was this is from the USGS, a 6.2 earthquake that rocked New Zealand today. And this continues to go on. And keep in mind, as I go back over to my prophecy site, keep in mind that the earthquakes are going to keep coming quicker and quicker. And the reason why is because in Mark 13:8, the Lord told us in the last days, all these signs are going to happen as a woman with birth pangs. So expect more earthquakes and expect bigger quakes. Now, concerning Hosea chapter 4, verse 3, this is one of the scriptures where the Lord warned us in the last days you're going to see the birds, the fish, and the animals dying off. Look at this. And therefore shall the land mourn, and every one that dwelleth therein shall languish. With the beast of the field and the fowls of the heaven, yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away. And in my book, since 2009, since I've been tracking, there is page after page of birds, fish, and animals that are dying, disease, pestilence, that the Lord told us to be looking for. Now I'm going to bring you to 4 more that I didn't post, and that starts on April the 21st going down to the 25th. So let's hit each and one of those. You'll see the first one that came from the Independent. A storm kills thousands of birds. Look at that. About 10,000 birds of various species were killed when a storm with heavy rainfall lashed the village of Mandapur. So that's the first one. Thousands of these birds being killed off. Let me go back to my site, or we'll go right over to the next one. And you can see here as I scroll up for you, shock as 150 dead animals found in the North Yorkshire farm. And when you read this, I'll let it be that when you go to my site, the link will be there and you can click and read all of the articles. I'm just giving you a glimpse of what's going on. But according to this, it says about 150 sheep and lambs, 3 cows, and 3 horses were found dead at the farm in West Leighton between Richmond and Barnard Castle after the concerned member of the public contacted the RSPCA. So it's happening almost on a daily basis now that we're either seeing birds, fish, or animals that are dying off. Let's go on to the next one. You can see this is from the ShanghaiDaily.com. The date, the 25th, preventing disease after the quake. Now this is, if you want, combine the two. Jesus said there was going to be earthquakes, great earthquakes. And obviously, there was one that just happened in China. Now, I'm going to highlight this for you. But as you can see here, they had to take out 60,000 ducks were safely disposed to prevent disease. There was a lot of animals. And this was because as a result of the 7-point, this is huge earthquake that hit, 7.0 magnitude, that killed 196 people and left another 21 missing. And so other birds, because of different reasons, but the fact of the matter is they're dying off in huge numbers. Let's go on to the next one. Here we go again on the 25th. Vietnam calls shifts after bird flu hits. Authorities in central Vietnam called nearly, here we go, 10,000 swifts after samples of dead birds tested positive for the type of H5N1 influenza virus, the news report said on Thursday. Now, we're starting to see a lot of information about this bird flu. Now, in my book years ago, and also on my site, I warned, even before the newscasters were talking about it, that watch in the future when this bird flu starts to mutate and jumps from not just chicken to chicken and chicken then to animal, then animal to humans, and then humans to humans. And we're at that point right now. Listen to the news at night. Look at the BBC or the BBC News. Look at the different news about this disease mutating, and you'll see what I warned you. They're reporting about it now. These are the things that the Lord said. Pestilence, earthquake, and so it's right in front of us. Now, let me go back to my site for a second and click on so that we get into the next prophecy. Paul the Apostle in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. Many of you should know this by now, but it's a major sign of the last days and where we are. And it says, "For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child." Remember I quoted Mark 13:8, when the Lord said as the last days it was going to happen as a child with birth pain. Well, he's saying essentially the same thing here. But now we know that during the time that they're calling for peace and safety is when this is going to happen. The sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. So the Christians who are on guard, watching, abiding in the Lord, real Christians, they're not going to be in the dark about what's going on. All right, so if the Lord told us about watching peace and safety and then destruction coming at this time, you should be ready and watching the news, what's going on. So let me click to this next article because the new Pope is getting involved in the peace process. And we know from Revelation chapter 17, there is a false prophet that's coming. We know that the Bible tells us he's coming from the city with the 7 hills, which is Rome. We also know that in chapter 17, there's reference to the colors of the Pope, purple and scarlet. There's reference to the gold, the golden cup, and the richness. So we know we are looking towards Rome. And one of the reasons in my presentation that I talk about this is because we're seeing the identical same thing that is coming from the Roman Church, the Catholic Church, as in Revelation. So when we start to see that the Pope is going to get involved in the peace process, and we know that the Pope, the Pope that was working to get one person to run the world government and the economy. And this is essentially exactly what we see in Revelation chapter 13, where the false prophet will come, and he works with the Antichrist during the last days. So let's take a look. Perez and the Pope to team up for peace process resurrection. Now, the peace process, in case you're new with Bible prophecy, the peace process between the Israelis and the Palestinians has been stalled for over 2 years now. And, of course, if they're talking about resurrecting the peace talks, and the Lord said, when they shall say peace and safety, which now we're getting into that area again because they're starting to talk about it, that's the time that you should really be paying attention. So President Shimon Peres, who will visit the Pope Francis at the Vatican next week in their first diplomatic meeting, whose agenda includes the eternal pursuit for the peace in the Middle East. Peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians the war against poverty and relations between the Jews and the Vatican. So there you go. We're starting to see more news almost every other day now. What's going on, either about what's happening between the Palestinians and the Israelis, the push for Kerry with the peace talks, excuse me, or now with the Pope, Rome getting involved. And these things are very, very important to not only do you understand it, but look for it. Now, there's another article that I want to bring to your attention, and again, it talks about the peace and safety issue. And the UN calls the new Mideast peace push in wake of Obama openings. Let me go right there and bring that up for you. It says the fragile hope triggered by the renewed U.S. engagement must be sustained, political chief says during the meet with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And this was the 25th. That was yesterday's news, but it is very, very relevant to what's happening. The United Nations, this is where it came from, the AP, Associated Press, the UN political chief called Wednesday for a major international effort and a bold leadership by the Israelis and the Palestinians to break the political deadlock on peace talks and move ahead on an important opening by the U.S. President Barack Obama. Jeffrey Feltman told the UN Security Council on Wednesday that Obama and the Secretary General Ben Ki-moon agreed at the White House meeting on April 11th that there is a window of opportunity for the Israelis and the Palestinians to resume the peace negotiations. Keep in mind, when they shall talk peace and safety, that's when the destruction comes. So, he said that the Secretary General reaffirmed the UN support for a substantive initiative to advance the two-state solution. The UN's got a curse on it because they're trying to divide the land of Israel. That curse is found in the 12th chapter of Genesis, Joel chapter 3, verses 2, and also in Zechariah chapter 12. So it says, including through the quartet of Mideast mediators, the U.S., the UN, European Union, and Russia, all of which, because they're trying to divide up the land, have gotten the curse, God's curse on them. So the bottom line is this. They're beginning their quest to start up the peace talks again. And this is at a time where you should be having a heightened alert when it comes to this prophecy. Let me go on to another one. And this is from the Asia Times. And this also yesterday's news. It says a complex bargaining process involving the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, and Israel. Keep in mind, Hamas and Israel, or the Hamas and the Palestinians, are mentioned in Psalm 83 as two of the people who are going to be coming against Israel in that Psalm war. So Hamas and Israel, among other actors, is unfolding. It is still much too early and too optimistic to forecast a breakthrough in the peace process, but it is highly probable that there will be significant transformations of the Israeli and Palestinian political scene soon. Reports that the United States will try to convince a major Middle East summit in June illustrates this. In the last few days, two other developments also strengthening the conclusion. The Palestinian prisoner, Samir al-Swali, whose 8-month on-off hunger strike had provoked widespread protest on the West Bank, reached a compromise with his Israeli captors, while the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, asked Turkey to mediate in dispute with the rival Palestinian movement Hamas. This is just the tip of the iceberg. A Hamas delegation is currently in Dara, in a new base of the organization's leadership. So there's a lot going on in the Middle East, and what we do know is they're making attempts. And again, that's the bottom line. Making attempts to solidify this new quest for peace. Let me go back to my site. Now, in relation to this quest for peace, take a look at this. Zechariah chapter 12, which I mentioned a few minutes ago, it says this: Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all people round about. And when they shall be in the siege of both against Judah and against Jerusalem, and in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves will be cut into pieces. And this is everyone who comes against, not just some, not just the United States, Great Britain, Russia, or the UN nations, whatever. Whoever comes against are going to be cut into pieces. That's what we're seeing here in Zechariah. So let me go back. It says, I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth are gathered together against it. Now, I've been showing you from time to time how this prophecy is coming to fruition, because the world is coming against Israel. Israel is becoming a nation standing alone. And we see not only in Zechariah, where we see that Israel is going to be alone, but we also see in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39. And that's the prophecy that shows us Russia unites with the Islamic nations to go in after Israel. And we see that Israel is alone there, fighting. But it won't be Israel fighting, it will be God fighting for Israel in that war. The bottom line is they're going to be alone. The world is coming against Israel in the last days. Major prophecies being fulfilled right now. Look at this. So this is the headline: Kerry's shocking demand to Israel. Free the terrorists. Let's go there. Scroll up here. It says, it may seem amazing, but in the wake of the Boston attack, the Obama administration is pursuing Israel to free terrorists guilty of particularly heinous acts of murder. On Wednesday, the Knesset discussed America's demand that Israel release terrorists as a goodwill gesture to the Palestinian Authority. The demand is part of the intensive efforts by the Secretary of State, John Kerry, to revive the Israeli-Palestinian negotiations on a peace settlement. Efforts that are amazing in their own right, considering that the Palestinian Authority has constantly shown for the 20 years that it is incapable of accepting Israel and not interested in a state living in peace beside it. Now, the Psalm 83 war, which I'm going to cover in a few minutes here, the Psalm 83 war shows us that the Palestinians are going to be in it. And so if there's a call for peace and safety, and we know that sudden destruction is going to come, and we know that the Palestinians really don't want this peace, but they're looking to not only grab the West Bank, the Gaza, but all of Israel, East Jerusalem. And we have an administration, and I keep saying that the Obama administration is mouth. They say that they're friends of Israel, but you can see from their actions, it's the exact opposite. They're asking them to free the people who are trying to kill the Israelis. It's unheard of. And Kerry with Iran at the brink of the nuclear capability. Syria, a maelstrom of the clashing terrorist faction. Egypt, close to economic collapse. North Korea, threatening nuclear aggression, has in recent weeks been meeting with the PL president, or the PA, Palestinian Association President Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah, and also Amman in Istanbul. So we see that the leaders are coming together. Now, Abbas' preconditions for resuming negotiations are the same as they have been for years. And if you go back into my post 2 years ago, this is what I told you to look for. There would be no changes. That's what we see now in the writing. It's almost like they were listening, or they were writing my post and copied it. Israel committing beforehand to withdraw to the defensible borders, prohibiting Jews building in Judea and Samaria and parts of Jerusalem, and releasing terrorists from prison. Israel is reportedly at this point rejecting all these demands. They have to. They cannot just arbitrarily let people who are trying to kill the Israeli citizens out of jail. They can't arbitrarily just give the land the buffer zone that stops the attacks or limits the amount of time that Israel has to counter an attack. It's self-preservation. It's self-defense. Now, the Obama administration is also preparing for a multi-billion-dollar economic incentive that would bring international business and major infrastructure projects to the West Bank. Again, nothing essentially new, but rather part of a 20-year tradition of Israeli, U.S., and European efforts to bribe the Palestinians into adopting Western norms and practices of peace, prosperity, and tolerance. And if you should know anything at this point, you should know that the Muslims are not going to go to the way of the West. There is no way that that's going to happen. There's too much of a bridge, except for when the Antichrist comes, when he has the power like nobody on earth, because he's going to have satanic powers. And this man, the Antichrist, will be able to form a 7-year peace agreement with Israel. And believe me, you want to be in the hands of the Lord Jesus Christ. You want to be his child. You want to have received Christ already by this time. Because the Lord is coming back for his bride, and you don't want to miss that. So, the article goes on. Meanwhile, the terrorist in the U.S. is pushing Israel to release includes the killers of, and then it gives you a whole list of the people that were killed. And Obama wants Israel to release these people? Are you kidding me? All they're going to do is infiltrate right back in and start doing up where they left off. So we see Israel is being left alone. Israel is not being watched over like a good friend should watch over your ally. It's not happening here. Now let me go on. All right, so here's the headline. Israeli military shoots down drone. And what's so significant about this, I'm going to show you in a second. It says, approached by the country's northern coast, the military said suspicion immediately fell in the Hezbollah. Now, keep in mind, Hezbollah is in the group of people who are listed in the Psalm 83 war that will be coming down with the Palestinians, okay, in that war. So that's why I needed to point this out. Hezbollah militant group in Lebanon. Lebanon is also a nation listed in the Psalm 83 war, which denied it sent the crap. Now Hezbollah, Al-Manar TV made the announcement on Thursday through a one-line statement flashed as an urgent news bar on its screen. Now, despite the denial, the incident was likely to raise already heightened tensions between Israel and Hezbollah, a bitter enemy that battled Israel to the stalemate during the month-long war in 2006. This was one of the birth pangs that the Lord talked about. Nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, birth pangs, as you also saw those pains in 1 Thessalonians. So it says, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he was in a helicopter in the northern Israel at the time of the incident, said that he viewed the infiltration attempt as with almost of the utmost gravity. In other words, I've told you before what was going to happen, that if Israel were attacked, that Israel would respond to show the world that they can't just sit back like they used to do, like back in 2006 when 7,000 rockets were poured on them before they made a move. Israel's not going to do that anymore. So now that we saw the drone and we saw in the last 4 days, we saw more mortar rockets falling into Israel, watch Israel respond again, and watch what happens with the world's press as they come against Israel. This is part of Zechariah's prophecy leading to the fruition of that prophecy, where all the nations coming against Israel in the last days. And it isn't a coincidence, not a coincidence, that we're seeing the same people mentioned Lebanon, Hezbollah, the Palestinians that are mentioned in the Psalm 83 war. Now here's an interesting one because it deals with Syria. Syria is also in that Psalm war. Let me show you why I'm here. Number 10. In the Old Testament, you'll see the Old Testament name Assyria, and a modern day people, the Syrians, and also in northern Iraq. But why I'm here, take a look. Hezbollah, which also that show up in southern Lebanon, or the Lebanese, the Hamas in the Gaza Strip, which is the modern day, guess what? Phoenicians, or the Palestinians, modern day Palestinians. The Phoenicians were from the Old Testament. That they're the modern day people who make up the Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The Palestinians. And so this is why I'm bringing you this information. So let's go to Israel may face wars, because I've been warning you that they are definitely coming. So we're at the article, Israel may face wars with Iran and Syria within 2 months, says analyst. Now I've been warning that the war is coming. I can't tell you exactly when it's coming. I do know that the war is coming because the word of the Lord is always true. It always happens. And if it says it in Psalm 83, and we see it in Ezekiel chapter 38, of which Iran will participate, it's coming. We're seeing the signs of it. Israeli intelligence officers say the moment is fast approaching when the country's so-called red line triggers for military action in both Syria and Iran will have been crossed. President Bashar al-Assad is already believed to have crossed the red line in Syria by using the chemical weapons. Last year, or at least 6 months ago, I warned you to watch what was going to happen with those chemical weapons. And if they were moved or if they were used in any way, Israel would end up responding. And we're starting to see the makings of that taking place. And there is now a widely shared view within Israeli intelligence that Iran will have the nuclear capability by the end of the year. Analysts made clear at this week's Institute of National Security Studies, in the conference in Tel Aviv University, that Israel potentially faces 2 large-scale wars within months. Now, we know, let me go back to my site here because this, you need to see this. So, if Israel goes in after those chemical weapons, we may see the response from all the rest of these nations go after Israel, because Bashar al-Assad, and you'll see this posted at my site, promised that if Israel intervened, or if the UN or outside nations, that what he would do is go after Israel. And we're getting pretty close to that point right now. Now, if, on the other hand, that Israel were to attack Iran, and the Muslim Brotherhood saw, or the Muslims who saw Israel attack Iran would join together, and they would be these nations, that could set off the Psalm 83 war. The Psalm 83 war could take place, and then the nations who are not listed in the Psalm 83, but are listed in the Ezekiel war, of which Russia, Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, Turkey, and the rest of them, then later they would come after Israel. And so for the 2 wars that they're talking about, there's still 2 wars to be fought that God said to keep on the watch for. And this is why I'm bringing this to your attention. Now, we also saw that Israel shot down this drone. And this is the article that I was on before, that I was showing you that Lebanon they're involved. Lebanon is getting more brazen. And when this happens, and Israel has to retaliate against such things as these drones or rockets, then you know something is just on the horizon, and it becomes extremely important. I know that I say this 10 times in this video, but it does become important. We need to be watching what's going on in the world, because this is what the Lord has asked us to do. All right, so let me go back to my site here. And you'll notice here in the prophecy about Israel bringing their people home in the last days. Isaiah 43 verses 5 through 7, Fear not, for I am with thee, and I will bring thy seed from the east and gather thee from the west, and I will say to the north, Give up, and to the south, Keep not back, bring my sons from afar, and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Now, in my last live presentation last week, or less than a week ago, in Atlanta, Georgia, I had a section about how the Jews from the east, the north, the west, and the south are coming back to the nation of Israel to fulfill this prophecy. Now, today we had more news about this. Let me go over and get that news. This news is exciting. The reason why it's exciting is because God's word, number one, is being fulfilled. Number two, when we see it being fulfilled, that gives us encouragement that the word of the Lord is true. And number three, it excites us because we know when we see these things, we're looking up, because the Lord said, when you shall see all these things, know that it's near, even at the door. And your redemption is drawing close. Our redemption is heading towards us faster than most people believe. Take a look at this. Amazon Jews on their way to Israel. Hundreds of descendants of the Peruvian Jews are planning to make a halal immigrate to Israel, the Jewish Agency reports. So, what is a halal? Well, it is a movement, a migration. And that's what we're seeing. And it isn't the first time, because since 1948, when Israel was born again as a nation and people started to make their way back to the motherland, up until now of 2013, there was almost 4 million people who left the north, the east, the south, and the west to come back to the nation of Israel. And as you can see it here, they're still coming back. Still coming back. And it is a blessing, and it is a specific prophecy showing us we are, in fact, in the last days. Now, let's move in to another prophecy, as you see here in Luke 21:25. And it says this, And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars. Now get this, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Now these are the storms. And we've seen a lot of the storms in nations that have had the curse fall on them because they're trying to divide the land. The United States is one of those nations. And let me just show you what's happening right now, because we see in this article, the town under siege by rivers seeks the bailout. Let me go over to it. You see the headline to it. It says, for 40 years, Shirley Moss has lived in the same home in a tiny southeast Missouri town, but as the sandbags piled up, yet again she didn't hesitate when asked if she would take government bailout. In a New York Minute, Moss said that her double-wide mobile home in Dutchtown, which sits in the Mississippi River bottom, I'm 75 years old, I can't fight this. Flooding has become a fact of life for many quiet homes like Dutchtown, where 100 or so residents live unprotected against the worst of the water has to offer. Feds by days of drenching downpouring, and the Mississippi is again clugging at the high levels, raising new fears that days of sandbagging won't suffice against the rush. Now look at this. The residents of Missouri, Indiana, Michigan are trying to stem the tide of the murky water, or river water, and towns along the Illinois River. And so we see this catastrophic event that's going on, flooding that's going on, and it's a headache. FEMA's got to get involved in this thing. And when you look at the prophecy, let's go back there for 1 second, because it says perplexed, problems, right? And upon the earth, distress nations with perplexity, problems. So FEMA's got a major problem. State after state is flooding. They don't have enough money. They can't respond fast enough. But this is what's happening. Keep your eyes on the storms this summer, because I believe we're going to see a lot more of this. We're going to see a lot more, not only the storms, but you're going to see a lot more of news showing us the crops have been devastated, not only by the winds and the rain and the flooding, but you'll also see it other reasons why, such as the heat and droughts. And this leads into a food crisis. This leads into the warning by Jesus in Revelation 6:6, where he said, "And I heard the voice in the middle of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny." This shows us that the people who are living during that time, during the tribulation, are going to be working all day long for one small meal, just a cup of or a quart of wheat, and not much more than that of barley. It's enough for one person, one meal all day long. Not a very good scene. If you don't accept Jesus Christ, plan on being there, because that's what we know from Revelation 6:6. So let me show you what's happened leading other news events leading up to this, the birth pangs of Revelation 6:6. And my book is completely loaded with cases of the wheat, the barley, the food prices going up, lack of food, and I'll show you all the different documentations on pestilence, on heat, on droughts, on tornadoes, on water floods, on insect, all destroying the crops around the world. So let's take a look at the first one. All right, this one is from AccuWeather. It says, while the situation is not a serious, frequent rainfall, chilly conditions, and muddy soil over much of the Midwest this spring has put the skids on planting for the time being. And during the last several years, it has been one extreme or the other for agriculture in portions of the central states. Wet weather and flooding was the theme in many areas during the 2011. And last year, spring warmth turned into blistering heat and drought during the summer. The conditions that I just mentioned to you. The conditions that Jesus Christ said to look for. This season so far, the Mississippi Valley into the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley region, it is flooding as well as lingering chill. So there's a lot of reasons why crops are being taken out. And this also comes with a video, and you can look at it. So it gives you what's going on with the jet stream, other information. I know that there's a lot of people that come to my site are very interested in keeping abreast of what's going on with the weather. And this is a pretty good site, AccuWeather.com, to go for. So let me go back and we'll get to my site and look at another one. ZNews.com. Says the unseasonal rain that lashed Andhra Pradesh over the last 4 days has claimed 25 lives and damaged crops over 70,000 hectares, officials said on Wednesday. The deaths, almost all due to thunderbolts, were reported from 11 districts. And so this is the bottom line, just showing you the number of crops that are taken out. Look at this. As per the preliminary estimates, crops over 46,290 hectares in 17 districts were damaged due to the freak weather prevailing in the state since April the 9th. Paddy alone had damaged over 38,397 hectares. Other crops affected by unseasonal rains include maize, and groundnut and sunflower. So there's a lot of different crops that are being destroyed. And this will give you some other information. You see the mango trees are badly hurt. There was 21,586 hectares of those. So different articles showing us what's going on in the world. And this is only the tip of the iceberg of what's taking place. Now let me go back to the article here. 120 Nigerian students who received the Bibles that I sent to them from my ministry and with the help of Ascent Ministry. And so not only are these people now in Nigeria, these students, 120 of them who've accepted Jesus Christ because they saw what God was showing them at my site and reading from my book on my site, but they have the Word of the Lord now in their hands. And I do have a video. These are some of the 120 who've given their life to Jesus Christ, and below I'll even put the video where I explain what has happened. It's a complete blessing to me. And then today, some of those students were starting to write to me, and you'll see some of the notes that were addressed to me, which is a blessing. And so the ministry is in full blown. People are being warned. People not only being warned about these last days, people are getting the word. People are finding out about Christ and the peace and the good news that Christ has given to us, where we can rest assured and live in peace even though we see the times around us falling apart and being in chaos as the way they are. We have the hope of the resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ, and He's been away preparing a place for us, and He's coming back to receive us and to bring us home. And this is a blessing. And I wanted to share this with you and share the letters from some of the people that received the books, the Bibles. And I just sent over 10 of my book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, and they will be sharing those books because I send everything out for free. No one even has to pay for the shipping. Now, let me just say this as a sidebar. Just about every single day, when I get a news from before it's news, there's somebody on there who's been telling untruths about me. And this person, for whatever reason, hates me. And he's been saying that I've been charging people and don't send them money. But the fact of the matter is, that is a complete lie and a distortion. In 36 years of this ministry, not one person has ever bought a book, or one person, there's not one person can say that Frank wanted something from him. What they can't say is I gave it to him for free. And what they can say is, even in my live presentations, I don't ask for anything. In most of those presentations, somebody will say, why don't you help him out? But what I say is, if God leads you, that's between you and God, and that's all I say. But nobody can say, I asked you to pay for anything in this ministry. It's untrue. It's a free ministry. As a matter of fact, let me show you how this is such a lie. Look at this. Because at my site, you're going to be able to go to my site, and you're going to be able to click the link to get my book absolutely free today. Look at this. I'm going to do this for you. So if you think that I'm charging you, or if you think this guy, whoever it is, that Pharisee.org, I believe that it is, if you believe that I'm charging people, take a look at this. Click the link, and you'll see that that link is going to come up. It takes a few because the book is over 400 pages, so it may take a little bit. You see that it's scrolling down here at 38%, 39, 41. So I'm going to wait to come up because I want to show the people today. Because Satan is out there using people to try to whitewash the ministry. And I'm not going to have it. Because I'm going to stand up for truth, because there is nobody who's paid for my book. Now there's my book. Take a look. It just came up. My book came up for free. Every single page for free. So there's no reason for me to even ask. Because it's there on my site for everybody to see. And not only is it there for everybody to see, I want you to take a look at the date. That's today's date. I keep this book up to date almost every other day, as much and as fast as I can, and I give it to you for free. And I mail it out to you for free. When I have the ability so that I can go to the printer to do this, everybody that wants one will be able to get a book. And if I can't, I'll get a disc to you, which is also free, and the mailing's free. And if God speaks to your heart, that's between you and God. But when somebody says that Frank DeMora is charging he's a liar, I'm not lying. The person who is making these accusations are going to have to face Jesus for what he's doing. And I'm praying, for whatever reason, the hatred that he has towards me will be turned around, and that he will understand that someday everybody's accountable for what they do in this life and what they say. And God knows I'm doing whatever I can to lead people to the Lord, bringing the salvation of our Father Jesus Christ to as many people as I can for free. And if you're obstructing that goal, you're going to have to pay the price for it. And that price won't be coming from me. It will be coming from the Lord Jesus Christ on the day of judgment. So please consider what you're saying before you say it. Now, I do have people all over the world that's been asking me for the book. I just sent out the book to Australia. Books going to New Zealand. Gave all the books that I brought. I had the books shipped out to Atlanta. 3 cases of books. And I came home with one book or 2 books actually, and both of those books were for a purpose. One that I gave to a gentleman who I sat next to on the plane. When I was witnessing to him on the plane, he went home, or a girl went home with that book. And the other book was given to a movie star that the Lord allowed me to witness to on the flight coming back to Santa Barbara. And that was a blessing. And I hope to God that the Lord will use this book in his life to bring him the glorious peace that we all have in Christ. So thank you everyone for being patient with me. I know that this was a little bit longer, this video today, but it is my blessing to bring you this information today for free, as I have been for the past 36 years. God bless.